Hello everyone, welcome to Asura Psych, and today's video was sponsored by a patron over on Patreon. And what I mean by that is that from this month moving forward, I'm going to be allowing the $5 and up tier on Patreon to respond to a patron exclusive post where they will be able to suggest video topics or questions that they'd like to have answered in video form here on the channel. So if you'd like to have your question answered and want to support this channel at the same time, consider supporting me over on Patreon. Now, the patron for today chose to remain anonymous and just wanted their question answered in video form, and the topic we're going to be tackling for today is how INTJs express their affection. Essentially, how are INTJs different from other personality types when expressing love and affection for their partner and those people that are close to them? Let's get into it. I've always been a proponent of the idea that both INTJs and ISTJs are the most private when it comes to expressing their emotions, especially things like affection or more positive emotions to people who are close to them. This is due to the fact that they have tertiary or third introverted feeling. So when we look at the function stack, the tertiary function is kind of the odd child out because the dominant function is one that's very present in our personality, and the repressed function, despite being lower in the function stack than the tertiary function, is a larger part of the psyche because it's the mirror of the dominant function and therefore takes up more of the conscious/unconscious psyche. So essentially, during times of stress, you're going to see the repressed function come out. This is why, for example, introverted feeling or extroverted feeling are going to be more present in the thinking dominant types during times of stress, whereas feelings are not as often present in INTJs and ISTJs when they are stressed out because they're not going to be resorting to feeling as a response for their stress. When we look at the tertiary function in the introverted types, it tends to be something that is awkward and kind of something that they want to keep to themselves. It's usually shy and almost childlike. So for INTJs, expressing introverted feeling is going to be something that is not a priority for them, and even if it's something that they want to do, they're usually going to struggle doing it. And this is because, again, it's in that tertiary slot. It's not something that they typically resort to in times of stress, but it's also something that they don't usually use when they're in a positive state either. And this is why it takes longer for INTJs to develop this function. It's usually not something that's developed into 20s, 30s, and sometimes even 40s for some individuals. So what does it mean, or what does it look like when an INTJ is expressing their emotions for other people, or expressing affection in particular? From my experience working with INTJs, they don't usually show their affection through commonly known versions of expression of emotions, such as hugging or emotional expression in the face, these types of things. They're not going to be very smiley or happy. What they typically tend to do is show their affection through actions for the people they care about. In my opinion, an INTJ, you can see if they care about you if they're invested in your future, which is to say that if they are suggesting things that they think will help you in the long term, the odds are that they probably care about you because they usually only invest their energy in people and the futures of other people if they deeply care about these individuals and want to see them succeed in some form. Different love languages and styles of affectional expression are going to be things that matter when we're talking about how an INTJ might want to express emotion towards the people they care about. So for example, how I express my emotion towards my wife might not be how another INTJ chooses to express their affection towards the people they care about. When it comes to expressing emotions to my wife, for example, as an INTJ myself, I personally prefer to do it through smaller actions, and I'm not the kind of person who wants to make a big deal about those actions. So say, for example, if I want to buy my wife flowers, I'll go to the store and just be shopping, and I'll say, okay, maybe she'd like some flowers today. So I'll pick up some flowers, and instead of presenting them to her in some overly dramatic, romantic fashion, I'll kind of come home while she's still out and doing something. I'll put them in a vase and I'll set them on the counter. Maybe I'll write a tiny little note, something along those lines, and then she'll be able to see it first thing when she comes in the house. To me, this is me showing that I care for her by doing some sort of small action that lets her know that I was thinking about her. I'm not going to be the type of person who's overly expressing my affection through normal emotional expression, those types of means. For me, it's more important to make sure that I'm expressing through my actions. I don't want to say it's more important, but that's just my style, how I as an individual tend to do it. And this is what I tend to see with a lot of other INTJs as well. And this goes back to the idea that they're kind of awkward and shy when it comes to emotional expression. Even simple phrases like I love you, which can be said quite casually by some of the other types, is going to be very difficult for INTJs. An INTJ telling you that they love you can be a problem, and a lot of INTJs aren't going to even feel comfortable saying this type of phrase for a while into their relationship, and even once they get to the point where they are attached to that person, it still is going to be awkward for them to say because it's an expression of emotion. emotion. And this is something that INTJs do not prefer to do. So instead of saying, I love you in these types of ways where they're going to be actually expressing this and showing it to the other person through their direct emotional expression, they're going to choose to do it usually through smaller actions or by trying to help the people that they care about. One important, and I would even say critical piece of information for people who are interested in dating an INTJ, or maybe you've been with one for a while and you're having struggles, is don't expect them to become somebody they're not for the relationship, especially when it comes to emotional expression. And what I mean by this is that I don't think it's natural or healthy for most INTJs to attempt to grow into somebody who's going to naturally express their emotions like some of the other personality types might. Even if this is something that they work towards, it's usually going to be extremely uncomfortable and taxing on them mentally. I think it's extremely important if you want to be with an INTJ to learn their specific love style and how they express their affection. And once you can learn that, yes, they actually do care about you, they're just not showing it in a typical manner, then you can learn to appreciate that style of affectional expression. It's important for types to remember that INTJs aren't going to be these overly emotionally expressive people, and I don't think it's something that they can naturally grow into either. If you're the type of person who needs constant emotional validation, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a negative thing, even healthy people need this some of the time too, I don't think being with an INTJ might be the best choice long term. It may work out shorter term and you may learn to appreciate those small things, but if you're somebody who it's really critically important for your partner to show their emotional expression and affection for and towards you, an INTJ is going to usually struggle with this in the long term. And the more you pressure them, the more you're just going to cause anxiety on their end. And the more they're probably going to retreat and want to show even less affection for you. Because if you start to push on them, then they're going to go into their introverted feeling shell and they're not going to want to show you anything. What you're going to find with INTJs when it comes to emotional expression, and that is that there's going to be very few of these moments where they're genuinely going to express these kind of outward emotional affections towards you. But when they do happen, they're extremely genuine and they're something that they truly mean as an individual. INTJs are not the type of people who are going to fake their emotions for the sake of other people, usually, which is why when they do get to that point where once in a blue moon they want to show some sort of emotional expression for you, it's something that you should be looking out for and you should maybe be really happy about, because if that happens, they genuinely care for you and they're excited and happy to be with you in that moment. All right, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion on INTJs and how they prefer to express their emotions and affection towards the people that they care about. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you're interested in having a question like this of yours answered, remember you can consider supporting me on Patreon, where I will be posting a post allowing people to suggest video topics for the next few upcoming months. And you can maybe have yours picked out, and I will give a shout out to you on the video if you want to have it when you are chosen. Other than that, I would like to remind everybody that I do have personality typing sessions available as well as coaching over on my website, asurpsych.com, if you're interested in working with me to find out what your personality type is and what that means for you. This has been Asura at Asura Psych. Have a good one.